hands are as well as they are. Come on, you can do better than that. Put your hands together. You know God is blessing you in spite of it. Let's give God a large praise in this house. What a wonderful Savior, wonderful Savior, wonderful Savior. We are appreciative of those of you that come together with us today, and those of you that are visiting with us by way of Facebook Live and by way of our website. We are grateful for you. So we're going to get right to the message, and then we're going to let you go. I'm just appreciative of those of you that pressed your way out, despite of what others say, that those that have church pastors are not compassionate and all of that. But you know, people go to the gas station and things happen there. People go to the grocery store. Things happen there. And I just believe that we can come to church for 30 or 40 minutes and give God praise. I believe that. And was looking at Facebook this morning, just for a brief moment. They were saying that in Italy, 29 people have been delivered. So I still believe God. What about you? I believe God. Yes, I do. I believe God. So I still believe God can keep you. I believe God can heal you. I believe God can deliver you. So yet we will be cautious and we will be careful. But I just believe God will honor our presence in this room today. Sometimes you got to go the extra mile to let the devil know that dilemmas don't dictate to me. My faith is strong in God. And I know there are some that say, yeah, but you're foolish for coming out. Well, you do what you have to do, but those of us who are here, I prayed and asked God to keep us by the blood. And that disease won't come because of our desire to be in the house of God. So I believe that. So we'll come, and if the government shuts us down, then then we have to do what we have to do. But for right now, we're going to just come and just get together for these few minutes. Amen. Our meditation for today, if you will look in your Bibles at Psalms 46. Psalms 46. I will not preach the whole psalm, but I want to read it just to deposit a word in your spirit. Let's start with verse 1. It says, God is our refuge and strength. He is a very present help in trouble. Therefore, we will not fear, though the earth be removed, and though the mountains be carried into the midst of the sea, though the waters thereof roar and be troubled, though the mountains shake with the swelling thereof, Selah. There is a river, the streams thereof shall make glad the city of God, the holy place of the tabernacles of the Most High. God is in the midst of her, and she shall not be moved. God shall help her, and that right early. The heathen raged, the kings were moved. He uttered his voice, and the earth melted. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our refuge, Selah. Come behold the works of the Lord, what desolations he hath made in the earth. He maketh the wars to cease until the end of the earth. He breaketh the bow and cutteth the spear in sunder. He burneth the chariot in fire. But this is where I want to zero in on today for the people of God. Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the heathen. I will be exalted in the earth. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our refuge. Selah. Thank you. You can be seated. A lot of us don't know what it means to have downtime. because movement is a part of our makeup. Stillness is a poor quality of mankind. But the text tells the truth that sometimes you can miss too much by moving too fast. Misnomers and the meaningless moves that we have because we fail to sit down and hear what God has to say. I was saying to a group of ministers just the other day that when the Lord wanted Egypt to settle down, when he wanted the children of Israel to settle down, plagues came upon the earth, but they decided that they would be creative and devise other plans and things to keep them occupied. I want to say to you, child of God, be careful what you do to entertain yourself during this downtime, because God is not giving you this downtime for you to entertain each other or be entertained by each other. God is giving you this downtime so you can get more acquainted with him. Yeah. People who really don't know God, they end up with a high level of frustration and a high level of fear. But sometimes, God, child of God, you remember, those of you who have been raised by old school, you know when it was thundering and lightning, you had to get somewhere and sit down. That meant that all activity was going to cease. That meant that everything is going to cease. There's no talking. There's no playing. There's no creativity. You had to sit down because they believed it is then that God was talking. And I want to come to you today to suggest to you, child of God, when you look at the makeup of the text, he says that a mighty fortress is our God. He shows us, child of God, that God gives deliverance to his people. This is a psalm to encourage us, to give us hope and to trust in God, trust in his power, trust in his providence, because every now and then there'll be situations that look like it's out of control, but God is always in control. When you look at this word refuge, child of God, this word refuge literally means a shelter, a rock, or refuge. It looks at the verse, it teaches us that it's a stronghold, it's a high tower, it's a place where we can be assured that God is protecting us. So we have to understand that we have to depend on this refuge. And not only does he offer shelter, but he also offers strength. Because every now and then, child of God, you'll get weak. And he says in the time of trouble, it describes a person who's in a tight place, in a corner that's unable to get out. He says, don't be afraid because God got your back. And child of God, he gives one more scene. He not only talks about shelter and strength, but he talks about sometimes we'll be surrounded. There, when you look at the text, there had been no battle, but the angel of the Lord left evidence behind to encourage the people of faith that everything is going to be all right. And some of you, you haven't been touched by the disease, you haven't been touched by the disaster, but the Lord keeps on leaving evidence behind to encourage you that though things are going on around you, God says, I got you surrounded. I'm talking to somebody in this room today and talking to somebody who's watching via by Facebook Live and all the other entities that we have to get the message out today that you may be surrounded by trouble, but the good news is God will always leave evidence behind even when you're not experiencing what the land is experiencing. Same thing applies to us sometimes, child of God. He says that there is a river. He talks about the raging of the river. Can I suggest to you, child of God, that we need not be disturbed by that because God is with us? Can I suggest to you, during this season, during this downtime, when everything is shut down, when everything is shut off, we have to remember as a child of God, our Father is right there with us. That's good news today. If your life is filled with trouble, I want to encourage you today. I want you to be refreshed by this cool stream on a hot day that God is with his people. He's providing stability because the truth of the matter is, child of God, things could be worse, but God, he allows us time to get familiar with him. So then the question becomes, and I'll let you go, the question becomes, how familiar are you with God? How much do you really know about God? And then how much do you really know him? Because some of us know about God but don't know him for ourselves. The truth of the matter is, child of God, there's no class here now. No. Because the rich as well as the poor are in the same shape. I can't hear nobody here. Whether you're in the suburbs or the hood, you're in the same shape. No matter if you're a millionaire or if you don't have a dime in your pocket, everybody is in the same shape. But our perception, while we're in the shape that we're in, that is what's going to hold us. So I come to tell you, if you know God for yourself, God will keep you when you can't keep yourself. Yes, He will. And I suggest to you, child of God, we won't be moved by what's going on from day to day. We don't know what the news is going to say from day to day. So then, Pastor, what must I do? And I'll seek to answer this question and then we can go. The Bible says, we just read it, be still. And know that I'm God. That's what He says. He says, be still. We're in verse 10. He says, be still and know that I'm God. God says, watch this. He says, in all of this, I'm going to be exalted among the heathen and I'm going to be exalted in the earth. Listen to what He says. The Lord of hosts is with us. And the God of Jacob is our refuge. Then He says, Selah. Let's look at that verse for a minute. First of all, in the midst of your downtime, He says you need to get some accurate conclusions. Because most of us are not accurate in our report. We got different reports out. God is this, God is not this. We got different reports out. This is going to happen, that's going to happen. But He says in the text, He says you ought to draw some accurate conclusions about this, that during this downtime. Verse 10, He says, be still and know that I am God. Matter of fact, Aristotle says contemplation is the highest form of activity. Sometimes, child of God, you just need to be still and let your mind think on God. Hold on. Look at that word still. Rapha in the Hebrew literally means to cease. It literally means to sink down, let drop. It literally means to be disheartened. You know what that literally means? It means that I trust God so. I'm so familiar with God that I can relax like I'm relaxing in my recliner. It means that I can sink down if I'm tired. It literally means to just let it all drop. It literally means to be disheartened. I am so trusting God that I'm not affected personally or emotionally by anything that's going on because I'm not disheartened because God is over my safety. And I suggest to you, child of God, when you go home, let your favorite chair, your favorite seat minister to you. That when you've had a long day and you walk in the house and you can't go no further, you don't have strength to go in the next room, you just bop down. You just let it all fall there because you believe that when I sink down, when I sit there, it's going to hold me no matter how tired I am, no matter how weighted down I am. That's what it literally means to sink. It literally means to relax. That's what I want to tell you, child of God. If your mind is racing and if your heart is confused, it is hard to relax. In other words, He says, take your hands off of it. But our problem is we like to manage our own lives. We like to be hands-on people, but God is God and we're His servants, child of God. Now, why do I relax? I relax so I can reflect. I relax so I can remember, because you need to understand, child of God, God never leaves you where you are, but He's always going to take you where He wants you to be. But can I help you out? As He transports you where He wants you to be, guess what, child of God? He's already there. Y'all can hear what I said. God will not leave you where you are. He's going to get you where He wants you to be. But the good news for you is that He's already there. But you can't know God if you're rushing and running all the time. Sometimes God creates situations in your life so you can really know Him. Guess what? We ain't got nothing else to do but be still now. Huh? I can't hear you. We don't have nowhere else to go. I went to Walmart the other day, my favorite store. I had my walking shoes on. I was playing. I was going to stay there for an hour or two just to walk around, but it was about 8:20. They said, you got 10 minutes. You got to get out of here. Because I was looking for something, because stillness is not a part of my makeup. But sometimes God says, I will create some situations to where you can draw some accurate conclusions, because too many storms and situations, you've been acting like I'm not in control. You've been acting like I can't fix it. So he says, what I want to do for you, I want to teach you how to be still so you can know me for yourself. Child of God, you've got to be still. What are some accurate conclusions? First of all, you got to be aware of his character. You got to know that he's Jehovah Rohi. He's the Lord your shepherd. What are some accurate conclusions? That he's Jehovah Jireh. He's the Lord that provides. He's Jehovah Shalom, the Lord your peace. He's Jehovah Rapha, the God that's your healer. Jehovah Shammah, the Lord that's there. Those are some accurate conclusions, child of God. He says you've got to be aware of my character, but then also be aware of my creativity. You remember how he made a world out of nothing. And can I keep suggesting to you, if he makes a world, don't you think he can help you maintain your world? Don't you think that God can take care of you? You've got to remember his creativity. We've forgotten all that God has already done. So when I look back and see what God has already done, it enables me to believe that God can do some more. Can I suggest to you, child of God, you've got to know his character, know who he is, know his creativity. But then can I tell you, thirdly, when you're sitting down getting some accurate conclusions, being still and knowing that he's God, you got to also be aware of his control. Sometimes God lets the crisis take its course, but he's still in control. Did you hear what I said? He let Abraham go all the way to the mountain, tie up his son, and then turned around and told him, don't do it. Because there's a ram caught up in the thicket. He let Daniel get in a lion's den, a hungry lion. But God was still in control. The lions didn't bite. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, he let them get in the fiery furnace. But he didn't let the fire burn them. I can't hear nobody. Because God is still in control. Moses at the Red Sea, he let them get in a place where they couldn't cross, climb, or conquer, but yet they crossed on dry land, and Pharaoh and his army drowned because God is in control. Can I suggest to you, that's what he's already done in your life. He's already created some miracles in your life that came through some mess and some situations, but God is saying, hey, be still and know that I'm still your God. He's still God. Say it for yourself. Say, he's still God. Don't you dare forget, no matter how tough your situation may be, don't you dare forget that God is God. God will create some moments that you'll be still so you can recognize, get it in your mind that, hey, God is creating. God has the control, and he's still in control of this pandemic right now. God is in control. But then let me rush on to give you the second one. You need to understand, child of God. First of all, he wants you to get some accurate conclusions. But then listen to what he says. I will be exalted among the heathen, and I will be exalted in the earth. I like that. Because he says, I got authoritative intentions. You don't see it. But can I tell you, the plan is working as he wants it to work. Go back and read the verses. All of this stuff will happen. But he says, I will be exalted among the heathen. Don't you worry, child of God. There will be a favorable flip in your life. You missed what I said. It's failure and frustration right now, but God's going to flip the thing in your face. He says, I know it looked like you're on the bottom. It looked like you're not going to rise to the top. But he says, I got a redemptive rise in your schedule. He says, you don't see it yet, but there's going to be a sovereign switch. You already got a guarantee that the plan is working as he wants it to work. If Job could come in here today to tell you that Satan's plan was to destroy me, But God's plan was to get me done. All I had to do was just hold out. Why don't you say just hold out? I don't know how many chapters God got in your life that will be subtractive chapters. But if you just hold out, God got a plan. Huh? And sometimes, child of God, you don't understand, but sometimes you have to remember it takes certain processes to push his plan. Because some of us are getting away. So sometimes he creates some situations in our lives that will cause us to have some stillness. So we need to understand, child of God, but the mystery of it all, God, you want me to be still, but it look like you ain't moving. But then, God, when you're moving, I'm bothered by the mystery of your move. You're not doing certain things because if you got all this power, then why do we feel powerless? You got all this power, then why all this death? If you got all this power, why all this disease? He said, don't you worry, don't you question the plan. God says, I got intentions. Do you believe that for your life? God says, I got intentions. He says, I will be exalted. Yes, he says it. It's in verse 10. He says, I will be exalted among the heathen and I will be exalted in the earth. God says, this thing ain't about you. God says, I'm not going to let the enemy win. You didn't hear me. He's not just talking about the enemy in the world. But can I suggest to you, any enemy that has attacked your life, God says, I'm not going to let the enemy win. I hope you'll be encouraged by these words today. And I'm sitting down. But can I suggest to you one more time? God will not let the enemy win. He says, I got a plan. He says, I know you don't see it because you can't comprehend it. It don't make sense. But God says, I got authoritative intentions. You don't understand, but I got an intended purpose behind all of this. Can I suggest to you, child of God? God says, the only thing I want you to know is that I'm going to bring glory to myself in all of these circumstances. So what are you trying to say, Pastor? Can I suggest to you, child of God, God's lesson for you today, that behind every plot, God got a plan. All right. That's good. It don't look like it. It don't make sense. But God got a plan. All you got to do is stop by Calvary. Judas was focused on the silver, but Judas was a part of the plan. Marching him from hall to hall, from judgment hall to judgment hall, that was a part of the plan. They thought they were plotting against him, but it was a part of the plan. Can I suggest to you, it don't look good, but what was the whole plan? The plan was for Jesus to get to Calvary. The plan was for him to hang on an old rugged cross. They couldn't understand it, but they didn't know. The moment that he says it is finished. Did you hear what I said? The moment that he opens up his mouth and says that it is finished, it is then that everything will be signed, sealed, and delivered. But thanks be unto God, the plot didn't end with him hanging and dying on the cross. The plan was for him to get up early the third day morning with all power in heaven and in earth in his hand. Because behind every plot, God still got a plan. Can I tell you? He not only has a plan, but I think I ought to tell you behind every plot, he got power. Did you hear what I said? God got power. It looked like the plot is getting the best of you, but God says, my power will always override the plot. Yes, it will. Yes, it will. Let's go home with this. He says, I got authoritative intentions, but then here's the last thing is right here. He says, the Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our refuge. He gives you some assuring companionship. He's with us. He's on our side. His presence is terror to our enemies, but it's safety to us. Hold on, you missed it. You missed it. When my God shows up, it scares the enemy, but it sedates and satisfies me. I'm just not done now. Come on. Don't let me say it one more time. When my God shows up, it scares my enemies, but it sedates and satisfies me. Listen, because when he shows up and you've been bothering me, when I turn the situation or turn you over into the hands of God, and then when he shows up, it becomes terror to you, but it's safety to me. Hold on, what you're missing here when he says this refuge, it literally means a high place. This is what he says. The Lord of hosts is with us. It literally means when he talks about hosts, I preached this to you before, that it's like a serried ranks of angels, like that's our strength. You need to understand, child of God, is like a multitude of angels coming our way. We got a host that's on our side, and the enemy think that they got you down because it don't look like nobody's with you. But you got a gang of angels. Y'all don't hear what I'm saying. You got a whole host that's on your side. If you don't believe it, child of God, how many times have the problem been greater than your strength? But when the problem was over, you were still standing. How many times have people been against you? A whole crowd have been against you, but God left you standing. Huh? God is with you today. God got a whole host that's right there with you. But then here's one more thing. Because some of you are thinking that I'm not deserving of his grace and his mercy and his favor. Because some people out there in the world are thinking that I don't deserve this. God is not going to do this for me. But God is so strategic in wanting to shape your perception of how gracious and good and loving and kind he is. He stops and says, hey, but the God of Jacob is our refuge. I know. God of Jacob is our refuge. He's with us. Yeah, but it means more than that. When he says the God of Jacob is our refuge, he says, I'm assuring you that I'm the God who met Jacob when he had nothing and when he deserved nothing. I was with him. And so as I was with him, I'm with you. Watch this. Hold on. Because then there's another class that say I don't deserve it. But then there's another class that's always looking at their past failures. But watch this. The God who met Jacob in his backsliding and his failures. He was deceitful. But God met him and he changed his life. That's what I want to tell you today. Some situations that happen and occur in your life is to change your life. So when this downtime is over, you need to be able to declare that, hey, I'm not the same. Huh? When this rest period is over, when God opens the door and allow us to go back to life, not as normal, not as usual. Huh? Because somebody here, you figured out now that you've been in this situation that normal was abnormal. Huh? You're not listening to me. Normal has been abnormal. But thanks be unto God that when this downtime is over, when God opens up the door and when God says, okay, this pandemic is over, enough is enough. When God moves his hand of mercy and his hand of healing, God is going to say, hey, now that it's over, what do you know about me? How much information have you accumulated? Huh? When disasters and storms come from now on, what are you going to say? God is still in control. Hold on. He uses one more word right there in the text, and then we're done. He says Selah. That word Selah literally means pause. It literally means don't say anything, but it also means in the Hebrew, what do you think about that? That's why you ought to do a word study. So you can see what it means. Watch this. It says one more time. What do you think about that? So you know what? Because some people see God move and they're still depressed. God makes a way and you still stressed. God makes a way. Blood pressure still high. God makes a way. He puts everything in control and you still live life like it's out of control. But God says, when you look at my word, what do you think about that? When this thing is over, I'm not trusting those who are supposed to come up with a vaccine. My victory is not in a vaccine. I'm not trusting the president. I can't give glory to him. Glory belongs to God. Things will be better in your life when you start looking at God and giving God the credit for keeping you from what should be killing you. I want you to live life like God is in control. Not living life loosely, but living life like God is in control. Listen, this ain't the first time we've been threatened. This ain't the first time. Anthrax and all these other things that have come out. People were afraid of dust and all this other stuff, and God kept us. Can I suggest to you, God is saying, hey, when downtime is over, Selah. What do you think about that? Now some of you are asking, well, what is God going to do? He says, I'm going to do what I've always been doing. What is it? 2 Chronicles 7:14. I can't say it enough. If my people, which are called by my name, would humble themselves and pray, seek my face and turn from their wicked way. He uses an interesting word, T-H-E-N. Nothing is going to happen. Till those of us who are his people would seek his face, pray, humble ourselves, and turn from our wicked ways. He says, then. At that point, when they do what they need to do, he says, then I do what I want to do. He says, first of all, I'm going to forgive their sin. Our issue is greater than sicknesses. Our issue is greater than these things that they're saying and the side effects and all this other stuff. Listen, the issue is sin. He said, then will I hear from heaven. I'll forgive their sin. And he said, I'll heal the land. You want something to happen, child of God? I dare you to pray and be sincere. That's what this downtime is for. For us to recognize who God is. But hold on, Pastor, wait a minute, man. Does he have to speak through crises and circumstances? Certainly not. But sometimes that's the only way that some of us are listening through hard times. How many times have we all, those of us who have kids, or you keep your kinfolk, and they come to your house and say, all right, now I'm going to get you. They don't pay no attention to that. You raise your voice, all right, you're going to get in trouble. They don't pay no attention to that. Then you pull up the bell, all right, now I'm going to get you. They don't pay no attention to that. When do they get the point? As long as you're talking and fussing, you don't pay attention to that. They keep going back doing exactly what they were doing. But until you make a connection with their posterior, I told you I'd be good. I knew the cameras were watching. I told you. is when you make that connection. Yeah? I tell you before, my kids, they had a system. They knew what they were supposed to do while I was gone, but they had a system. When they hear the car back then would pull in the yard, one of them would signal the other, hey, Dad is here. Then you could all hear because they know if I come in the house and what I told you to do is not done, then there's going to be some problems. But it took me coming home, knowing that when I walk in the house, if it's not done, there's going to be some problems. God says, I've been speaking to you all along. I've been talking to you all along. I've been requesting your presence. I've been trying to get your attention. The little small circumstances. They say you still won't be still, you still won't listen. God said, I've been telling you go right, you choose to go left. God said, okay, I'm going to give you some downtime. And this downtime is not to hurt us. But God says, I'm trying to get you closer. Do you think this pandemic surprised God? Oh, no. God is in control. God is in control even of that looks like it's out of control. God is giving you moments to contemplate, to think, to sharpen your mind. Because guess what? When we survive this, there's going to be some more storms. But will you respond and react in the new storm like you did the old storm? He says, I'm giving you moments, some downtime. Sit down, learn who I am, so when a new storm comes. See, the only people that are really discouraged and hurt are those that didn't know God before the storm hit. Now, we sing the song all the time, but I don't think sometimes we listen to the word. Listen, you can't make me doubt him because I know too much about him. That means I'm not trying to get to know him in it if I know him before the storm. Don't give me too many amens. You make me feel like preaching. You got to know him before the storm. You got to know he's a healer before you get sick. You got to know that. So number one, it's about accurate conclusions. Be still and know that he's God. You got to conclude that in the time of storm, I'm not hoping he is. I know he. Number two, authoritative intentions. That God got an intention that his plan will always override the plot. He says, I'm going to be exalted. You got people that's calling on God that have never called on before. People seeking God that have never saw him before. The plan is working. And then he says, number three, it's about assuring companionship. He says, don't you worry. I'm with you. And my presence is greater than the problem that's coming at you. And then for those that feel that they're not deserving and feel that they messed up, he says, remember, I'm the God of Jacob. That's who's with you. And then he says, hey, Selah. What do you think about that? When God makes a way, it's to give you that Selah moment where God can just blow your mind. Even with that sickness in your body, God can still do it.
Amen.
Did you hear me? Yes, sir. Peter's mother-in-law was dying of a high fever. Jesus just walked in, took her by the right hand, lifted her up. Yes. Jairus' daughter had died. Jesus reversed the death. Yes. Yes. Naaman was dying of leprosy, but God reversed it. That's what I'm going to tell you today. God will give you a moment that'll blow your mind. Yes. So what does it mean? I got to hear the bad reports. I got to hear the bad news. But God says, I'm not looking at what you heard. I'm looking at what you believe. And the question is, do you believe God? Do you believe God? That's my assignment for you today, to live. You leave out of here. Because in this downtime, when you can't go nowhere, can't do nothing, God says, hey, do you believe me? Do you know me? Some are going to give up in the race, but you hold on. Hold yourself together, because God got this in control. Father, thank you for your word. Thank you for your people. Thank you for this gathering. I pray now that the word that's deposited in our spirits, that it may live throughout the weeks to come. Even though our world may be shut down, heaven is still open. And we believe that even though the world may be going through shortages and grocery shelves are empty, thank you that heaven never runs out. And through our obedience and our love and our relationship with you, we thank you for the unseen warehouse that's stocked with everything we need. And you promise that you'll supply all of our needs according to your riches and glory by your Son, Christ Jesus. So we receive access to that unseen warehouse. We put everything in your hands, everything in your care. Though the internets are jammed up and there's a lot of buffering going on and people can't get through on the lines because everybody's using it, thank God that heaven's lines are never congested. And no matter how many people call on you at the same time, you are answered individually and collectively. God, we thank you for being God. And our efforts out here today is not to receive fame, form, or fashion, but we're out here to just uplift your name. And I pray now for increase. I pray for your blood covering. Continue to keep us in your care. Let nobody be harmed or hurt because they made their way to your house today. Continue to heal, deliver, and set free. And God, we thank you that this is a perfect opportunity for you to speak so people can get to know you. And we thank you for our relationship with you. We thank you for our faith. We thank you for being the God that we can talk to and that we can trust. Continue to fill us with your Holy Spirit now. Continue to lead us. Bless our homes where we are. Some are lonely in their homes, but God, have them to know that you're right there. When they can't talk to nobody else, thank you for the ability and the availability of having communication with you. So God, continue to keep us now. Keep our children and children's children. Bless them in the name of Jesus. And God, we're not going to wait to give you glory when it's over. We give you glory in advance. We bless you in advance. We thank you in advance. And in our spirits, the pandemic is already over. In the name of Jesus, we claim these things and count them done. Amen. And thank God. Quickly, if there's one here.